Thanks for tuning in for part two of our talk with coaches Anthony Thomas and future Hall of Fame coach Scott Smith as we relive the 2019 5 overtime girls sectional championship game between the Waldron Lady Mohawks and the Jac-Cen-Del Lady Eagles. We pick up part two of this episode in the fourth overtime.
Well, then that goes into overtime 4, where it kind of does look like a track meet compared to overtime 3. Most points scored in all the overtimes. The other thing that's interesting is I don't think in any of the overtimes that there was a lead one way or the other more than one possession until we get into this fourth overtime. And Coach Smith gets a 4-point lead, and you're probably thinking, wow, this might be over. And that's when Shaw comes down, hits that quick 3-pointer, and it's back to a one-possession game.
Yeah, and that was just incredible. I mean, she played an incredibly gutsy game. As a matter of fact, when I went up and interviewed after the ball game with the SCI local sports was there, and I brought up, said, man, she's like Willis Reed walking out to the NBA finals on a bum knee. And she was, and then to knock that shot down, I thought, we're up 2 possessions. We get a rebound here or they get a 2, that's fine. I think we're shooting free throws well. And she nails that, and it changes the whole complexion. And then I think the very next possession, correct me if I'm wrong, Anthony, that was the one where Lauren steals the ball at half court, right?
Yeah.
Yep. And then that was one of the great unsung plays for us in that game is Reagan Carroll sprinting down and fouling before she shot that layup.
Yeah. It was, and Lauren was kind of a mess at that point physically. I mean, she really had no speed, and she had a really bad ankle, and she was having some rib problems. And, looking back on that, interesting about that is when she got fouled, that was the only point that I thought we were sectional champions, because we go to the line down 1. She'd been in this situation at Morristown earlier in the season.
And I was there at that game and watched her hit the free throws against Morristown. When she went to shoot the free throw, I said, this is the Morristown game all over. She's going to hit them both.
And she knew the timeout was going to come. She hits the first one, pressure's off. We didn't mess with her. We did the same thing we did last time, just handed her a ball, let her be. And when she goes back out to shoot it, I walk down and I'm even with the goal down by the baseline. And she lets it go, and I'm like, that is long. Damn. And she missed. And a little story about that. So, you're stunned after the game's over. You're like, what just happened? I'm saying goodbye to the seniors. It was emotional. And somehow, some way, her and I both end up back on the bench watching their celebration. I don't know if it's fate. I don't know if I believe in that. But I put my arm around her and I said, hey, we'll just try to get back next year and do it. And she said, Dad, she goes, I'm sorry I missed that free throw. We would have won that game. And I said, no, Lauren. I said, if you don't hit at least one of those free throws, that game's over anyway. And it was kind of an interesting, special moment, father-daughter there, that we both ended up back on the bench watching this happen. But I thought she was going to hit it. I didn't have a doubt in my mind.
Mm-hmm.
And we did what we do. We talk about make or miss. Here's what's going to happen. And so nothing was different for us. Right? Nobody was talking to her. We're just doing our thing, and she missed.
And what was so great about that is, like you said, make or miss. You actually forced a turnover after that miss with less than 5 seconds left, and you get another chance at it, which just goes to kind of show what you just said. Make or miss. We got a plan.
Yeah, listen, if she misses this, and they get the ball and call a timeout or whatever happens, we're not backing off. We're going to be in everybody's face. We're not going to allow anything to be easy. And who knows, we might luck into a turnover. Just don't foul.
Yeah.
And, I'm not – some people will play it extremely safe at that point, and I'm not going to do that. well, I might next time. Who knows? But we weren't going to do that in that situation.
Yeah.
You know, this is a sectional finals. They're going to earn it.
Takes us into the fifth overtime. And I think we're tied at 53s, right, Dave?
Yeah, 53 all going into the fifth.
Yeah, we were done at that point. I mean, I'll just be honest with you. We were done in the free throw shooting contest, and because we were always starting out a possession down. And the deeper that game.
When I went back and watched, though, you know, the free throws didn't really. I mean, we were talking like a little over a minute to go, and we're tied. And it was like, we scored, then you scored. We scored, then you scored. And then we got that flurry of when we got the lead, and we got the free throws. And then we had Reagan Carroll hits one and misses one, and then gets her offensive rebound. And I think we're up 3 now. And then she, instead of, and I'm thinking, throw it out, and then she shoots it. And then luckily Paige Ledford got the offensive rebound and then was fouled on that shot. So then that got us up 5.
Yeah, and that's the quarter where the freshman, Bogelman, comes in and hits those 2 free throws to tie it at 59 all. So that's what Coach Smith talking about. It was, I think, Anthony, it was closer through a lot of that overtime than you think if you go back and watch. And so
Yeah, I did.
I thought we were going to another overtime.
I just, you know, when you start, you have a feel for your team, and you know, you kind of know. And but I mean, they played, what was that, 52 minutes of basketball? Is that what that would be? I mean, to try to keep concentration, and like for us, I don't know how many turnovers they had. I think they only had like 13 or something, but we had 6. Yeah. I mean, so if you go back through and you start looking at statistics of this game, I think they out-rebounded us 50 to 27. They took a lot more and hit a lot more free throws, and they were legit calls. I mean, there wasn't any that I recall. I don't think there was anything that was really bad. It's just what they were really good at and what we were pretty good at. It's like both showed through that evening.
Yeah.
And I think when you get to that point, you run into a game like this. And, you know, I've watched it probably 4 or 5 times, and I tried watching it again the other day when I knew we were going to be talking about it. And it's really tough to nitpick either team at that point. You know, I mean, 52, think about that. That's almost 2 full games of basketball with that much on the line and having to concentrate. And for me, particularly, because I'm at that point, what am I, a second-year varsity head coach?
Yeah.
Trying to match wits or trying to get things across to my kids or to do things against what he's doing. And, you know, he's got 350 wins. I don't know how many you have. You've won 80 million sectionals, the state championship. I mean, it's tough. I mean, when you play Scott's teams, regardless of what he thinks their talent level is, they're always there.
Yeah.
And dare I say, a lesser coach in that situation, I'd have found a way to win somewhere in there. Maybe I'll say that, you know, and that's out of respect to Scott, and his kids. But you know, it was exhausting when that game was over, and I said bye to my seniors, and it was very emotional. And then Lauren and I made our way to the bench. After that, I didn't really know what to do. I was exhausted.
Mm-hmm.
And but hats off to them. I mean, it was a hell of a game. You know, I just hope we get to have those opportunities for crowds again, the way things are going.
Oh my, so do I. It just makes all the difference.
I mean, as far as that ball game, you know, obviously it goes down in the Lours. I think they're trying to figure out exactly where. I know that the Swayze boys sectional game back in the day, obviously this not only sets records for that from a girls standpoint, but you know, from a small little Class A sectional, you know, Anthony, I think you hit the nail on the head. When you talk about playing nearly 2 complete ball games, and you have a ball team that's really playing very well, I mean, if I were to tell you, you know, Mariah Day is going to get held to 3 field goals, Anthony, you've got to be thinking Paige Ledford either scores 40 or we may win this ball game. But to come down to it, you've got a number of kids that have just stepped up and made great free throws late. You had young kids in huge pressure situations in a gymnasium. Again, we're talking about gymnasiums now being empty. This gym was just, not only was it packed, but just the energy level in the gym, and, you know, kids could get anxious and turnover happy, but that really didn't happen. I mean, all the way through it, they were disciplined. They didn't try and do more than what they probably should have been doing. They stayed within themselves and gave the folks in the state of Indiana just one of the greatest basketball games of all time.
I'm glad you said that, because I really think it is. I go back now and watch games from, you know, past seasons, and, you know, as much fun and we had some really great games when we won the state, and that game ranked right there with winning the state and getting to the state. I was so emotionally drained. You know, I was like, I think I turned around and looked at my wife, and she just kind of looked like I was going to just break down. It just, and again, and I've said this before, Anthony and I have become really good friends. And I think that you can't compete against somebody in a game like that and have them give you your best and you're giving them best. You can't help but have an affinity for that person in that program. And I always have thought that Shelby County basketball in general, Waldron's program as well, has always been just the level of commitment and hard work. It's like what we try to do, or what we do, I hope. And you can't help but, like, man, I really want to root for that guy.
I also think it springboards Anthony into having a pretty terrific season this year. Again, because, I mean, at the end of the day, you guys go back and do it again this year, right?
Oh yeah, not as many overtimes, but boy, it was a very exciting and stressful game this time.
Yeah, I mean, when you think about it, what was a 4-point game, right? 40 to 36, I think,
Right.
in the sectional game this year. So I mean, again, it's when you think about trying to win that sectional championship, and to have 2 games like that back-to-back seasons. I mean, it's well, and then in the 18 game, I guess, you know, no wait, is it 17? The first season, Anthony.
Yeah,
is
17
there-
or
We weren't
18.
supposed to be there. You know, we were. I was trying to undo the previous regime, you know, but we got to North Decatur in that season, and they beat us by 2, I think.
They did.
That's when this group turned the corner. This group that made it to the sectional finals, and from there on out, we just kept getting smarter and smarter and smarter. And, you know, we've made it to the sectional final. We weren't supposed to be there, and played them, I think, my first year within 15. And then we all, and then we all go to, you know, we just happen to end up at the same summer camp. You know, maybe that's by design, maybe it's not. I'll never say, but and then it just progresses. But, you know, for us, I mean, I'll just be honest. I mean, you have children on the opposing team, and Scott knows pretty much how I think. When we go into this season, we are building everything that we are doing. Literally everything that we do will be to get to championship night of the sectional, and let the chips fall where they may.
Mm-hmm.
And do whatever you have to do with whoever might be in your way, whether you get the long road, the short road, it doesn't matter. That's where you want to be. And everything that we do over the course of the season, you know, like this team, they started the season 3-6.
Yeah.
And we were learning. And that's kind of our program. That's kind of what we do. Everything's to get to sectional final night. And you know, for the last 3 years, it's been Waldron and Jac-Cen-Del sitting there playing each other.
And
I'm not gonna lie, it'd be nice if somebody else would beat them. so I wouldn't have to try, right? But that's yet to happen. And but that's just kind of, the kids know it coming in. I mean, we don't even have to talk about it. But there's sectional 60 is not easy.
No.
You have a lot of teams familiar with each other. For Scott, I mean, think about it. He's won 3 in a row since I've been doing this in my gym.
That's why I think that we've had such competitive games every time that we played in the last 3 years.
Yeah, I mean, I felt like going into this year's sectional, let's say, we had to avenge a loss from a team earlier in the season. If you looked at it on paper, we weren't supposed to make it past the first night. But I felt like this year myself and the team was the best prepared for Jac-Cen-Del that we've ever been. And not to say the previous years we weren't, but we just felt like we were in a pretty good place, even though we were the underdog. And I told the kids, I said, you got to get us to the 4th with an 8 or 10 point lead, because him and his kids are worth that much, right? And it made me look like a total idiot because we get to the lead in the 4th with an 8 point lead and we didn't pull it out, But it's the game within the game.
Yeah.
And I can know everything they do, and maybe I spent a lot of time watching their film and his hand signals, and maybe I did or maybe I didn't, but you still have to go out there and execute. But for us, especially with young kids, and these kids were learning, I couldn't give them as much as I could give the previous year. I couldn't give these kids that much, and then as the season went on, I could give them more and more and more. But the secret sauce a lot of times is just, can you take away some of the anxiety? Hey, we've seen this. They're gonna do this, and they're probably gonna score, but we've seen it, and it's just kind of the game within the game, I guess. And Scott brings out everybody's best. They get their best shot. They bring out everybody's best. Brings out my best, and who knows? Maybe someday somebody else will raise the sectional 60 championship other than Jac-Cen-Del. I don't know, but it's a tough road to hold. You go into this year, Southwestern returns everybody. We return everybody. Jac-Cen-Del basically returns everybody, but gets stronger at certain positions. Be a classic again, right?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm thinking this year could be like the 2019 sectional, because there were 4 ranked teams in that sectional.
Yeah. And
I think with looking at Waldron and us, Southwestern Shelby, Morristown, Oldenburg's got a good kid coming back. Rising Sun's got some good kids coming back. Hauser's got a great young. You could have almost all those teams could have winning records.
With all due respect to all the coaches in Class A basketball, there's also it's a blessing and a curse, right, Coach Smith? Because every night your girls take the court, every other team knows who they are. They know the entire history about Jac-Cen-Del Lady Eagle basketball, and so you literally get their best ball game every single night, which that whole iron sharpens iron. So does that that may be tougher on your kids on a road game in the middle of November, but honestly that helps prepare those younger kids for the games they're going to see in February.
I would agree, and that's the one thing we preach is, we start to invite the 8th graders, in the spring open gyms to come in and play with the other kids. And the first thing we sit them down and say is you're going to get everybody's best game every night just because of the name that's on the front of the jersey. And if you can't handle that, then you probably won't have a chance to play varsity at a younger age. You've got to be able to handle that.
Yeah. That's something that, from a maturity level, most kids can sit there and they can nod along. It's the fake it till you make it, but it's also one of those opportunities for the kids to be enveloped by success and let that success and coattail really allow them to have a little bit of the swag and confidence. But they, at the end of the day, you still got to do the work. But it's an interesting concept when you think about November ball games and being 15, 14 and a half or 15 years old as a freshman and getting thrown in on the road against one of the Ripley schools or whomever, and really having to prove yourself. So.
Hey, Spartan heads. Next week, we spend time with our Mid-Hoosier Conference mates, the Hauser Jets, as we talk volleyball with Coach Jeff Case and softball with Coach Andy Bruner.
As always, we'd like to thank our sponsors, Flat Rock Ag, Larry Moore Construction, Kokomo Grain, and Flat Rock Precision. For Dave Blondell, our executive producer, I'm Kurt Carell. Thanks for tuning in to Spartan Heads.